Hello, gang. Welcome to Sketchin with Izzy. Just need to check, make sure you guys can hear me all right. Can I get it confirmed that the audio is working, please? Awesome. Hey, Sergio. How you doing, man? Excellent. Well, we're going to have a short session today. I'm working on a test right now for a new job. But I definitely wanted to hang out and chat, see if you guys had any questions about the recent episode, or if anything cool's going on with you. Let's go ahead and chat. And I'm on paint. Heads up, I've been having pretty odd issues lately with the computer, like blue screen of death stuff. So I've narrowed it down. Even the hiccups that I've been having in the last couple of stream sessions have been because my video card is faulty. It's a brand new build, which sucks. But that is how it is. However, EVGA's customer service is really great. And I have a replacement coming, and I've also got some webcam fun going on. I ordered a webcam, and it actually arrived, and it did work, but it was the wrong one. So if I had kept that one, I would have paid a great deal of money more than that particular camera was worth. So I've sent it back, waiting on the new one. Bear with me. This will all come together eventually, I swear. How is the Sergio? Since you're there, how is the audio levels? Is my voice loud enough, or is it too loud? I've been moving the mic around. I want to make sure all is good. We're gonna go back to our weird, creepy lady here. You may have noticed, I've merged all the layers down together. I did that so that it'll minimize the hits on the video card. I've definitely noticed that it tends to act up more when it's got a heavy load. So video games are pretty much out for me right now. I'm very sad. I like video games. Hi, Izzy. Hi, Irina. Welcome all. Good to see y'all. Hope everyone's is safe and doing well. Sorry, brain multiple places at once. Things here have been interesting. I live in Portland right now, so we've got some fun stuff going on out here. Some federal occupation. Good times. Excuse me. Boy, I'm so glad that I don't have a camera, and I wasn't actually taping just a moment ago. Right before I went live, I went to go and take a drink out of my nitro cold brew coffee, and I put my mouth on the complete wrong part of the cup and just poured it all over my chest. Oh yes, I'm starting off great. So I've got fresh eyes. I'm looking at this now, and I really hate what I've done with these shoulders on the far side. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of imply a drop of the distant shoulder and let the forward shoulder kind of come out in front. And I think that might help a little bit with what's going on here. In fact, this might be worthwhile. Let's try this. Let's do a little bit of experimenting here. Oh God, you're moving some stones, Irina? Oh, that's no fun. I hope the garden is nice. Was it for a path? What I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck these shoulders up and kind of make them shrug a little bit. Yeah, I definitely remember now that this was an issue in the original painting, was me trying to figure out how her shoulders would work. Having two pair. And I think that will help with the chest and the issue I was having with the spacing on the breasts to the clavicle. That's wonderful, Irina. I'm glad to hear you're having fun over there in the garden. The soreness is almost too much sometimes after workouts like that. You guys playing any video games lately? You got any gamers here? Is it just me? Am I the only 40-year-old gamer? I've been dying to get my hands on Ghost of Tsushima, but I'm gonna wait until I finish the other games I've got. I don't want to get back into the habit of buying a bunch of games and then never playing them. Now that I'm back on the soil. Hearing nothing but good stuff out of that one. Oh, there's great games on the Switch, man. There's a couple I've spent a lot of time on. Tons of hours. Irina, of course there's time for gaming and feeding the children. You just got to get them hooked on games too so they forget to eat. I'm doing some transformations here in order to flatten out the chest to add weight and flatten it out. Get a little more chest space for our death goddess or whatever this thing is here. I think that helps a little bit. That's awesome, Izzy. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, you know, I haven't actually played the last few Assassin's Creeds. The last one that I played was Black Flag, and I loved the shit out of it. I poured hours into that. That was a great, great game. I'll probably end up missing, I think it's Origins or something, and the Greek one. Is that what that one was? But I'll probably pick up Valhalla. Hopefully, I won't have missed out too much on the story. My friends have been trying to get me into Sea of Thieves, which is an interesting MMO type game where you play pirates, but the peer-to-peer is savage on that game. And then on top of that, with my video card issues, it's been poopy. It's been a little spoopy. Let's turn off the damage I've done and see if it actually helps us at all. Oops. I'm going to make this into a group. I like the weight a little bit better, definitely. The shrug shoulders aren't working, so we'll have to play with that. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to really work on this upper chest arms region, the forward arms, before the rest of it. The rest of it will be easy. It's really just getting this strange, unusual anatomy to work. That's going to be the challenge of this piece. Oh, Irina. So many have lost years to WoW. Don't feel bad. Civilization and Oblivion. Oh, man. All of the Elder Scrolls games, man. I'm a huge fan. I easily hundreds of hours into Skyrim. I never got into Civilization, though. Those strategy games, they're so slow in movement for me that I can't. The appeal never hooked me. I understand the appeal, but I just don't have the attention span, which is a ridiculous thing to say when I just admitted that I've spent 400 plus hours on Skyrim. I realize the hypocrisy in that statement. The last two Assassin's Creeds were really good, particularly Origins. Really? Do you recommend? Do you think I'll need Origins in order to pick up Valhalla? Izzy? I've always loved the gameplay in Assassin's Creed, but there's definitely been some gameplay creep. You know, it's that we have a massive map, so we're gonna give you a bunch of little odd jobs to do, and that kind of got on my nerves after a while. I know that you can ignore missions, so it's only a minor complaint. Hey, Dan Rob, welcome. Irina, I love board games. I'm a huge board game freak, and I come from a strong tradition, meaning just me, not really family, but I have been doing tabletop RPGs pretty much since preteens. My current favorite tabletop board game, I can't remember the exact name. I believe it is not House on Haunted Hill. I could only play it at other people's houses because I didn't have room on the boat for it. But it was like a horror game where the map changes, so it's a roguelike, and halfway through the game there's a turn in the gameplay where one of the characters becomes the baddie and hunts down the other players. Oh man, it's so fun. El Presidento. You know, there is one strategy game that I played for a little while, and I can't remember the name of it. It was on my iPad. Let me pull it up real quick. Let me see. Pull up my iPad. it was actually surprisingly good because it was all about how to manage an insurgency during in the Middle East, and it's very like you learn a lot about actual things that are happening. Rebel Incorporated on the iPad. I found that game very challenging and a great sort of, it's quicker. It's like 15-20 minute games before you're overrun. But I found the information from it really fascinating. How governments and like the UN and things like that have to work to manage terrorist organizations. It's very interesting. I think they work pretty hard to keep it from being racist. Let me see. I'm gonna look up that haunted game. Come on, phone. Unless one of you guys wants to do it for me. I remember it's like not Haunting of Hill House. I keep thinking it's like, it's a mishmash of two movie names, and I'm completely spacing on the original name or the board game name. I know Haunted or Haunting is in there, and I believe House as well. Pretty sure these arms were a little bit more beefy up top. Let's take a look at black and white. Definitely noodling. All right, time to get harsh here. A little bit of fill light there, but the fill light can only live in the cast shadow, so I had to establish the cast shadow first to help round out those forms. And I think I'm definitely hitting this specular too hard. It's always so tempting when you're painting skin to over specularize and to ultimately make the skin look far more shiny than it is. And that's a constant challenge to try and manage your material rendering on skin. Keep it from getting a little out of hand, a little too plasticky. Just touch is all you need. Notice I don't even have speculars on the nose yet. All right, well, let me catch up. Dead of Winter. I haven't played that one. Oh, Irina, you should absolutely talk to Henning. I've done board game stuff with him before, and video game stuff for Rock Pocket. Rock Pocket? No, I think it's Rock Pocket, or Pocket Rock. That's his the studio he's at. He's been doing video games for board games for ages, and I think he'd definitely be a great fit. So talk to him. Tell him Izzy sent you. I'm gonna have to make a decision here whether it's gonna be a light line or a dark line that separates the shoulders. Let's stick with light for now, subject to change. Maybe we'll pull out the chair just to help explain that shadow there. Board game work also is board game and tabletop RPG game work is all very fun, but in general also, just a heads up, I have noticed that the pricing is, I mean, they don't charge nearly as much as other entertainment products do for the end of line use, consumer use. So the pay is usually not awesome. You kind of have to do it because you love the product or you love working with the team. And that's okay. Sometimes you just got to work on something you want to work on. Let's do black and white again. It's a little bit better in the values. I think I may have overdone this. Sag a little bit. Bring our chest shape back. And then let's get to drawing again, just to double check our anatomies. Are you guys getting cut from me pretty regularly? I want to make sure. I'm not sure if the internet's holding out here. On my end, it's showing that the bitrate and the connection are good, but let me know. So new layer. I'm gonna double check. So I want this sort of anatomy here to be an elongated rib cage, of course. Hips. Okay, so I'm seeing some of my problem here is the core anatomy I've neglected just by going straight in, which happens. Everything's good. Sarah's seeing all right. Only half watching because you're painting. That's all right. We should all be painting. I'm sorry, Rena. Your question, but card games pay better. It depends on the card game. Some card, like the ones that are digital tend to pay a little bit better. Magic pays all right, but a lot of what you're getting is the glory of working on a Wizards of the Coast game or a Hasbro game. So you have to kind of accept a little bit of a pay hit there. Want this arm tight. Okay, so I can definitely pull back some of that arm there. Oh, yeah. Oh, I definitely got pretty goofy here. This is definitely a good reason why you want to take a break from your paintings, because then you can really analyze things with fresh eyes and see where you got a little silly. Silly Sally. Coffee. Your garden is damaging your internet. What have you learned about gardening? No more gardening. That's okay. This needs to drop in order to be anatomically correct with what I've established. Tighten up the arms. Okay, yeah. So there's some major problems happening here. This is where that argument for doing the drawing first is sound. It's just I like the immediacy of brush strokes. So I tend to start in shape. I might have to lengthen out this arm a little bit here. All right. So not all is not lost. What we can do is grab what we've got and do a pretty big transformation with the warp tool. So I'm gonna copy merge rather, paste. Oops, that didn't work. Oh, that's why. It's because I'm on a layer without pixels and visibility selected. If you're trying to do a copy all, you need to do it on a layer that is visible, both visible and has pixels available. Actually, no, that's not true. It just needs to be visible. You can do it on a layer with no pixels on it at all. Take that back. So copy merged, paste, and there we go. Now we're on. I'm going to turn on our lines, and what I'm going to do is lower the opacity of the new layer and make a new layer underneath all of that to kind of block out the region, get rid of the region that I'm attempting to fix with the warp, because the values are going to compete with the values of the bit I'm transforming. So let's see. The shoulders were close. I'm gonna go for shoulders. I'm gonna get rid of. I'll just paste again. Whoops. If you want to paste in the same spot that you were, hold down Shift while you're pasting, and it'll paste where you copied, directly where you copied from, if that's ever been a problem for you. Now we're gonna put this back on top, and now we're just worrying about the hands, particularly the lower ones. Not hands, but forearms. Deleting that. Whoops, wrong one. Deleting that. Do the same thing. Lower the opacity a little bit. Okay. Drag that under my line art. Turn off the line art for now. Yeah, that's looking a little better. Fortunately, the sun has come out again, and the skylights are glaring up my screen on my dark image. Whoops. Just jumped into the other screen. Yeah. So I'm going to turn off this and we'll take a look at the differences. Yeah, that's feeling a lot more natural. We'll keep going down this road and see where it takes us. Oh, I wish I could block out the windows where I'm at right now. What I'm gonna have to do is just straight up move the office into another room. I have two massive skylights that are like 4 feet by 1.5. I don't know what that is in meters, but yeah, it's a lot of light coming in here. I can barely see the painting. I don't think that the arm thing that I was doing from the Sargent painting is working there with the overlap. There's a saying in writing that essentially you have two options for a story. You can tell a complicated story in a simple setting, or you can tell a simple story in a complicated setting. And that's so true. And that's also true of your artwork. So in this case, I have very complicated anatomy, and it's probably better and will be clearer for me to do a simpler pose that doesn't have a lot of complex overlaps and things like that in order to sell the composition of the figure. And then when you have something that's simple and reads really simple in terms of figure or design or whatever, and it reads really well and easily, then that's a time that you can do something complex. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a good one to remember when things get tough. That's usually what those rules are there for. It's just to remind you when you get overwhelmed by something in your work. Oh yeah, where I'm at. In fact, this house I'm living in was designed by artists, but they are traditional artists. So yeah, and very much this room that I've set up my office, it was intended to be kind of a group studio originally, and it's great for painting, great for figure drawing. It's unfortunately not great for digital art, which is okay. I'll just need to move into a little dark cave. Of course, I'm in Oregon, in Portland, and it's overcast more than half of the year anyway. Just so happens I moved here in the summer. So even now, clouds are moving in overhead. You know, I like that more regal pose better. I keep trying to... Sometimes you're just fighting yourself. Two steps forward, 8 steps back, huh? Yeah, there's something about the relaxed, more regal pose that I think fits the original concept better. Inventing a figure, inventing a pose, inventing lighting and all that stuff all at once. There will always be lots and lots of trudging back and forth until you find the right thing. Guess the arms have to be extra long to match the elongated torso. Yeah, she always had kind of longish arms that are definitely inhuman in the original sketch. I think, yeah, and again, part of this, what I've done to myself is by making her seated, I've kind of scrunched up a lot of that, but I'm gonna keep working at it and hopefully it'll get sorted out. You still haven't figured out the best setting for when it's dark. Nothing really works. One of the best things for lighting when it's dark, when you're on a screen, I've found, is to light the wall behind the screen. It may not work for everyone, but what I try and do is I'll light a part of the room that won't interfere with the screen in terms of glare, but will also kind of light up a wall or something like that. It just give me some kind of ambient lighting, so that your eyes don't get stressed looking at a very bright thing in a very dark room. And of course, because we're painting, we can't put on the nighttime settings for the monitors, because it'll actually change the colors that are available to you. Now, if you're following the logic and rules of light, even though it's warm and yellowish, your painting should still look good. And you should still be able to technically paint in it. It's just you're adding difficulty you really don't need. It's all right if your monitor is close to the corner. Get a really small lamp, and then put it down in the corner so that the light shines up into the corner behind your monitor, and it should help with the eye fatigue. It's all it is creating kind of a more even lighting situation so that your eyes aren't fixed on the only brightest thing in the room. It's like staring into the sun. It'll give you eye fatigue, and you'll get real tuckered out from that. I think probably the night mode for monitors can be equally fatiguing, because especially if you're painting, because you're looking for values that are harder to see, because it's diminishing the value difference. Just making notes. Oh yeah, the lamp could be too bright. It needs to be less bright than your monitor, but bright enough that it's filling your space with more light. I have I picked up off Amazon. I think it was like maybe $20, 30 at most. A lamp light that has different settings. There's like reading mode and relaxation mode. So there's different levels of power, and also different kind of LED tones. There's warm and cool, and I found that works really well for exactly this issue. And it's a long, thin thing. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll post it on the Discord. It's worked out pretty well for me for exactly this issue. Yeah, you got to take care of your eyes. Take it from me, from my hard-won experience. My eyes have definitely been taking a hit over the years, and that is not something you can fuck around with. Cute, hideous things endlessly amuse me. God damn, I cannot see. This is killing me. Ah. Fuck. Okay, Jesus. Oops. Nope, that didn't work. Got an umbrella here. I'm gonna see if this works. I know. Something about luck or whatnot. A little bit, kinda. Still lots of reflected light, but it's something. I have an umbrella stick stand like right in the middle of my screen right now. And it's still easier to work on. Have I ever worked on a project which I would not be credited as an artist? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That one's a tough one because just some jobs won't credit you the way you think, especially when you get more into the entertainment industry. Like if you work on a film and you're not in a union or something like that, you might not be credited at all. I've got plenty of that under my belt. Sometimes you just gotta weigh it, you know, paycheck versus the crediting. Once you get to a certain point in terms of your own work, you know, you have a portfolio. You can do things where you don't really need the credit. You just want the money. But it's not, you know, there's nothing wrong with making that stand. I think that's a good idea. Wow, there's some there's some wild work in here that I couldn't see. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to keep going over some places because I just couldn't see it. Yeah, I mean, if they're not paying, it's not worth it. Especially if they're like going out of their way not to credit you. In my experience, the smaller the operation is, the more they tend to try to go out of their way to buy your work with exposure. So if it's a tiny pay gig and they're no way. Like one job I did was Riot. I did some splash art for them, and I've done some concept work for them. And obviously, as a contractor, I never really got any credit for any of that, which doesn't bother me. But they at least pay really well. If they're not going to pay and they're not giving you any kind of exposure, then that's so not worth it. That's one where you just laugh and kind of walk away, shaking your head. You poor fools. Did you like the rat? Thanks, Sergio. Yeah, that rat was a lot of fun. I do remember a lot of feedback on that one. Riot, they pay very well, so they definitely want to have some influence on how the work goes. And I remember they had lots of notes about the because he's in a gunfight, right? And so I wanted to show kind of this Matrix moment where the entire environment is exploding around him. But I was really, really careful about not overwhelming the shot with damage and flying debris so that you could see everything. So there was a lot of back and forth. I remember trying to get the right amount of debris in, like enough that it looked really actiony, and then at the same time controlling the amount so that you could see the character. I'm going to do the same thing I've done with this bottom one here and just hit it with a specular and call it good for now. Plenty. Can I at least display it as my own art as part of a portfolio? Of course, yeah. If you've done the art, you can show it in your portfolio. Now, some companies will be a little more stringent on how you can show your portfolio work. So publishing it online, I've worked on plenty of movies and games where you can't show that shit, not publicly, but you can put it into a private password protected portfolio. Wow, say that 7 times fast. If you get on ArtStation and you have a pro account, they have you can set up a portfolio page first of all, and then you can also do an offshoot of your portfolio page with a password protected version, and so that can just have your NDA related artwork. So you can always show your work. I mean, that's basically all you have from the project. It would be ridiculous to assume that you couldn't. for a company to think that you couldn't. But you have to do it very carefully. Obviously, you don't want to just show everything, especially if there's proprietary materials or things like that, or things that haven't been released. Generally, in my experience, the further down the line from production something's been, the more you're able to show. I mean, I've even kind of teased and shown some artwork from games that have never been produced. Like I did concept art for them and then they never got made. But no one would ever see that work. And I've seen other artists doing it, even on some of the same projects, showing some of their stuff. So, it's a little back and forth. You want to be careful. You definitely don't want to get sued. So do it thoughtfully. How much time can a splash art for a big company as Riot can it take? With feedback and changes. Well, okay, so on the Riot gig, if I remember correctly, we were given about a month. I think it was, they expected, it was a very specific number too. Like, what was it? 20 hours? No, it had to have been more. Some dozens of hours of work was required or requested, and then feedback. So altogether, that would be basically like around a month or just under a month to from sending sketches to turning in a final. And then you might get another week or two for notes. I did a couple where the notes were it was interesting working with them because they did like my work, but at the same time, so much of what they do and what they're known for is this really polished manga style splash work, and it's really cool. But it's not really what I do so much. I'm much more painterly in general. So it's interesting, and I have a feeling that's why we haven't done much work together since, is because my style just really doesn't match what they're after. So I remember getting lots of feedback in regard to strokes and painterliness, and they really, really wanted it super refined and smooth. So I had a couple where they actually did major paint overs with their in-staff artists on artwork. So those ones tended to take a little bit longer. It's interesting painting a four-limbed creature. I just saw it was on Instagram or something like that. The old behind-the-scenes footage for Goro from the Mortal Kombat movie. I guess that made the rounds in the practical effects circles again recently. Man, they did some cool work with that. And they even did the kind of quad arms that I don't like, or the 6-limb figure. It always bothers me when they don't account for clavicles and shoulder blades when an artist does those kinds of designs. And that was one of those, but it came out so nice. Really, really good practical effects. Always worried you wouldn't have enough time. Let's see. Is a month a standard in the industry? I'm gonna say a month is not. Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. A month is not uncommon. I've worked on tighter deadlines and I've worked on longer deadlines. The key really is just to learn your own system well enough so that you can estimate. If a publisher or a a developer wants to work with you and you are clear with them from the outset, look, I paint a little bit slowly and I need a little more time to do this sort of thing. I can do what you're asking, but it's going to take me an extra week or whatever. Most companies will work around your schedule or your, not your schedule, but your working system. I mean, the art is a really squishy field, right? This is a tough one because there's going to be form shadows on both sides of the tube. That is the upper arm. I only want the cast shadow hard edge up on the top end, and that's it. Save. Let's see. With time you get faster? Yes, you do get faster. A lot of the things that I've covered in our different lessons have been built around helping you to minimize the behaviors and the habits that will slow you down. And almost always those are things kind of like we've been experiencing on this painting, where you end up repainting the same things again and again, where you're constantly playing Lost and Found. With a painting like I'm doing right now, because this is for fun and kind of the journey is the point, that's okay. But when you are working on a piece that is commissioned and is, a professional setting, you want to avoid all possible pitfalls you can. Do everything you can in order to make sure that you are accurate and that you are going to be able to deliver the best you can do in the time that is allotted. It's tough, but really what you're getting with time is the ability to know what you need to do in order to meet those specific demands in the time necessary. Even if it means, like in some cases where you're like, all right, I need to shoot my own reference and I'm going to literally paint over the reference. Sometimes that does happen, and I have done that, where the timeline just didn't work out to me being able to figure out these problems as I go. It's important to remember that when you're doing art for a job, it's still a job, and you have a product you have to deliver. So that's the mindset you need to have. There are times to play around and goof around like I'm doing right now with this painting. And then there are times where you got to get down to business and do everything possible to and take every shortcut to meet the deadlines. You can do a month, but shorter. As Irina, as your work that you have right now, I think it's great. And a month is a very reasonable ask for that amount of for what it is you're trying to put out. If you decided to take a client that needed art faster, I think that we've covered some things where you could bend your expectations for yourself on what a finished piece is and how you get there, so that you could do it in a shorter amount of time. You have the taste. Really, that's what we're training in here is the taste and the eyes, and then really it's about knowing and learning those shortcuts. So I think you guys can all do that. Those of you especially that have been in the class for a while can take those shortcuts and know how to do them. You just got to practice with the shortcuts. Challenge yourself to see if you can do something in a short amount of time by taking all those shortcuts. And I think you'll surprise yourself. Oh, Toyina. Yeah. So when we're talking about feedback from clients, this is another great topic. You gotta learn to separate your work from yourself in a way. You need to, and it honestly it'll happen over time. It's just with enough paintings under your belt and enough work under your belt and enough dealing with clients, you learn to not. you learn that the work itself as you go is not the definition of you. It's not a reflection of you. It's just a product that you've created. That's not the same thing as who you are. So taking critique in stride comes with that experience, and it comes with churning out the work. You'll develop a thick skin when you do the work that we're talking about. You have to. Basically, it's a survive. In order to survive doing what we're doing, you need a thick skin. So it's a good idea to practice. Even that's something that you can even practice is get your work online, ask for critique, ask for harsh critique, and you'll get it. I guarantee. It doesn't take much to get an opinion out of somebody these days. Do that and learn to focus on taking the information as a way to better the work itself and not as a commentary on you and your qualities as an artist. It's hard and it takes time, but you can do it. And it'll be one of those things that people will notice, like you just noticed, where it doesn't hit you so hard, and you're able to take the positive things out of a good critique. Sorry, I'm talking so much and not painting. Wow. Do I take several works at a time? Yes, I generally do, especially freelancing. Like for example, I do the freelance illustration I've been doing lately, and then I also do the Patreon and the teaching, and now the Twitch. And let's say there are times when you have to say no, and that's something that you're going to learn eventually. At some point, all of you, like I and every artist before you, you will experience fatigue from taking on too much, and then you'll know that's your limit, and that to stay healthy, to have a good work-life balance, all that good stuff, it's going to be necessary for you to learn to say no and when to say no. I can give you recommendations, but that's not something anyone can ever just tell you. You really got to experience your limit to know not only what it feels like, but to value the work-life balance that is so necessary to just maintaining your sanity and making sure that your work is good. I can tell you about my limit, the times I've gotten really close to just freaking out. I remember, so when I first graduated from college at Art Center, I left with about 150K I think it was just shy of 150K in debt. And I was so freaked out about that. So I started working like crazy, and my system for dealing with the debt was to overpay so that I was actually paying the principal. And in order to do that, so you don't want to just pay interest. You got to pay principal. Otherwise, you're just going to be paying interest forever. And that's kind of how they get you. That's kind of their goal. They want to make it easy for you to pay just interest and not pay principal, because then you're going to ultimately be paying way more than you ever owned in the first place. It just keeps accruing. So I worked my ass off with multiple jobs at that time. And I think at my peak, I was doing 7 jobs at one time. And that's also when I started actually doing magic cards. So I was teaching at a few different schools. I had a full-time job at Sony at that time. I was doing freelance with Wizards of the Coast, freelance with Dungeons and Dragons, freelance on several other projects. And all told, I remember one night I went back and forth between 7 different assignments for 7 different companies. That shit was crazy. And that's when I was like, okay, this is it. I don't want to do this. I'm going to finish out this work, and I'm not going to take as much of this stuff. At the problem, it's lack of work coming in. Yeah. Yeah, lack of work, especially right now, is kind of an issue. Um, this is new for all of us, so I can't give a lot of advice on that one. Um, just keep at it, keep working on your portfolio, and when you don't have work, make sure that you're working on things that will help get you more work. That's a good way to focus your time. Oh, Irina, don't worry about me. I mean, what I did at that time actually wasn't the school that I went to really trained me well for overworking. it as much as people complained about it, and even the weirdness of having a student body prone to suicide as a result of the workload there. I think Art Center was famous for that. I actually don't regret how hard it was, because it really did train me to be able to handle that kind of pressure. So I have no regrets over it. I learned a lot during that period, and my painting got so much better, because mileage really is everything. I mean, the more painting you do, the better you get, period. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts on that one. Working with private individuals scares you because it's unstable. Yeah, it's tough. Private commissions are always squirrely. The only times I've really been screwed have been during private commissions. It's hard, and it takes time. And everybody gets screwed at least once. Oh, it'll be great exposure. Ugh. The thing to remember when you're working on private commissions, especially if we're talking like book covers and things like that, is that they need you just as much, if not more, than you need them. Keep it in mind. Part of the things I'm fighting here, or have been fighting, is a lack of lighting on all of the features. That's me. You may have noticed over the years or lessons that I just love painting skin, so I get fixated on it pretty hard. You've had a lot of unfortunate situations, Irina, with the private commissions. You feel working with the company would be a massive step forward, like a proof of leveling up. Well, yeah, I mean, yes and no. It's gonna be. It depends. There are a lot of people that just do illustrations, and they work on book covers. And book covers is a really common industry where that happens. And I don't think that there's anything that really says that marks your quality depending on your clients. Be careful with that, because then with that kind of thinking, you can kind of harm yourself by, assuming a quality and assuming your quality by that as a factor. I just said the same thing twice, but I just want to discourage you guys from thinking about like the big job as being the thing that qualifies your value. This journey doesn't stop, man. It's something that I had to learn the hard way. Like you'll set goals, but remember that those goals will be met, and then you'll have to have new goals. It'll happen again and again and again throughout your art career. So be careful about putting too much pressure on yourself about where you need to be. Izzy says, one of the reasons I first joined was because you went to Art Center. Aw, that's awesome. Cheers. Yeah, Art Center was a good school. I know a lot. It's very popular these days to poo-poo art school. And I understand why, especially as the rates continue to rise. I mean, in the time that I was there, the price per trimester went up like $4,000 or something like that. It was insane. But I also met so many great people. The challenge was great. The teachers were great. I would love to go back to school again. I need to indicate the pinch of this cloth, which means I need to have some form shadows where it's kind of bunching up the skin and imply that weight. It's just like the breasts. You have to, even with small bits of flesh, any kind of flesh, you have to pay attention to gravity and pinch and make sure it feels right. I think that's a really important part of painting, and it's also a really important part of sculpting. So a lot of the really successful sculptors, especially digital ones that I've seen, understand weight and gravity of flesh so well. It's incredible to see. When a private author approaches you, it's great, but it is only one person who thinks you're good. A company would be many people agreeing that you are. Yeah, I get that. I do. Usually, though, you're not going to be approached by a company to do illustration. That's less common. I mean, you're going to find that with, studios like Wizards of the Coast, but not common. For illustration specifically. If you got into concept or something like that, it might be a little bit more common. Or no, it's way more common, honestly. So you'll need to adjust your expectations with that. Excuse me. Because just the amount of work for illustrators is going to always lean more towards something where it's going to be a smaller company or even a private individual that's commissioning you. That's just par for the course there. So there's a distinct danger I would like for you to avoid, if you can, in qualifying yourself on basically like a concept art standard, because it's a different beast altogether. That said, they're out of the places that I can think of that would be a studio that would be more apt to hire straight up illustrators. A lot of them are in Europe, so you're in a good spot. I think France, Italy, Spain, England, Ireland, Scotland all have really great, Germany, they all have great comics scenes and illustration scenes. They're huge there. They're taken far more seriously than they are here in the States. I don't know what I was planning to do with that. Freelance and company work. There are several comic companies and publishing companies that hire stables of artists and keep the stables permanent. There are a lot of venues you can take an illustration background and illustration bent. So it's a possibility, and I think it's worthwhile to try and join something like that if you're looking for something that's more stable and regular. Publishing in particular, because you've got the book cover thing pretty much on lock. I think you could very easily end up working with a publisher, and that's generally how it works with book covers. Is instead of being approached by individual authors, what happens is the publisher will pay for and recommend artists for authors. So if that's a market that you want to get into, that would be the way to go. Yeah, send your work to publishers. And the publishers, in a lot of ways, the publishers are going to be easier to work with because a publisher understands, and they've been working on visuals for selling books for a long time. Authors, like I think we discussed this a bit with Christina in the last gathering. Authors have a very specific vision in mind sometimes, and a lot of times that's not going to match what sells a book or what grabs a person's attention, because they don't understand marketing, they don't understand visuals. They have a different focus, which is fine. They also tend to have a particular passion for the story as is, and they're precious about it in a way that prevents them from looking at it objectively, frankly, and that can also hurt the artwork that is going to end up on their books. So publishers are a great way to go if you want to do regular work and do illustration of this type, because they know what they're doing, and they also know when and how to trust you to do what you do best. I do not enjoy working with authors anymore. I won't work with an author unless I was approached by, one of my favorites directly. That might be a way. Neil Stevenson or Neil Gaiman come up to me and they're like, Izzy, I need you and only you, and you can do this. Then boom, I'm their guy for sure. But that's a highly unlikely situation. Of course, it's a very personal and very important and very precious thing for an author trying to figure out the artwork for their book. The problem is that is not necessarily the best perspective to approach the work in order to sell it to potential buyers and readers. In fact, more often than not, it's actually going to do the opposite. I'm a member on Facebook in particular of several writing groups, and I don't actually mention that I'm an illustrator, concept artist guy. Very rarely will I do that, but you should see the temps that they post. In fact, actually, this might be a good idea for you guys, is to get on to writing forums and writing groups on Facebook and let them know that you're an illustrator. You'll definitely be approached, I can guarantee you, but it will be quite a fight to get the rates that you expect. But as a writer on those sites, watching these other writers posting the artwork, I've even seen commissioned work, which was just, it's a hot mess, because they're over art directing. They don't understand colors. They don't understand first and second reads, like things that we talk about, and are second nature to us at this point, are things that they don't know. We take that for granted. They don't know this stuff at all. And you can see it in their decisions with the artists that they use. It happens all the time. You'd love to paint for D&D books, fantasy portraits like I'm doing now. Yeah, you could easily do that. I do think that your average D&D book, discounting the occasional cover, you're not going to get a great deal of money out of that. The inserts pay something like $200 at most for, and I mean that's for like full page inserts, and it gets less and less from there. It could be better now, but when I left, that's about what it was. It's just the pay for tabletop is not that great. Yeah, unfortunately, with the advent of like stock art and stock photography, I've seen a great many authors basically just throw their books in the bin because they decided to go cheap with the art, or they decided to make it themselves, and no one's ever going to pick up that book. It's sad. I feel for them because I'm coming at it not just as an illustrator but also as a writer. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, God damn, I wish people really understood that you get what you pay for. I learned a while ago, and I think part of it is that I'm in a specialized field that creates something on commission, and that's that people that spend the time to be professionals at whatever that thing is are worth the time, and they're worth the money. You know, a CPA is a person specialized in a specific job. I'm never going to be able to do, you know, anything on par with what they can do with those rules. Same is true if I want, you know, baking or things like that. It's okay to go to the people that know what they're doing in those fields. And I think the idea of paying, and for some reason this is such a hang up with artists, the idea of paying an artist just freaks people out. Like they think that's because they're just so used to free media. It's very sad. Yeah, Irina, I'm sorry to break that to you and to all of you guys. Trust me, the interiors for a lot of even the big companies that you would think, they really don't pay that well. There are some artists that have developed pretty good systems of subsisting off of that, and it works for them, where they'll take a whole bunch of these little insert contracts, which is fine, and they have, you know, they've worked on their art in a specific way so that they can churn out small things quickly. They know how to cut the corners right so that they're minimizing the amount of time put in order to make that thing possible. This is what I'm talking about. So if you're able to work on your method of working in a way that allows you to do stuff quickly and with minimal effort so that the hours to income ratio works out and makes sense, you're doing good. And you should cut any corners that allow you to do that. Because in the end, this is a job, and we are talking about effort per hour. This is your life, you know, that's what you're trading. So make sure you're getting what you're worth. Always. You gotta learn to get that level of magic of magic. You mean to work on magic cards, Irina? Taina says, I literally don't know how to play these fantasy card games, but I want to paint for companies that produce them. You think my chances are slim? I know that most of the big shot artists are usually deep in the culture. Actually, you would be surprised that you're wrong here, Taina. A lot of artists don't play those games at all, or they just have like a passing interest in them. You do not need to be steeped in the culture of those things. I've worked with concept artists that don't play video games. It's not. It may seem like there's a threshold there that prevents you from entry, but it's minor. it is good, I think, to know your products, but I don't think that it'll exclude you from doing the work. That said, there are a lot of ways. I believe actually even now Magic the Gathering is free online, like the digital version of it. Like I'm pretty sure it's free. So if you wanted to just kind of dip your toe in and get an idea of what it feels like, that would be a way to do it, and just kind of learn a little bit about the mechanics of the game and the lore of the game. That can help. I'm certainly not saying go in completely blind, but I am telling you that you do not need to be steeped in the culture of those games, steeped in the lore, in order to do the work. In fact, you know, when we're talking about hiring, like if I'm hiring somebody, I like to get a variety of influences and styles. I don't want everybody to be painting the same. In fact, I'd say that's one of the, in my personal opinion, that's one of the weaknesses that Magic is suffering right now, is that so many artists are like me, that we're all digital. A lot of us do a very specific style of fantasy art, and there's kind of a homogeny that's happening and has been happening for the last decade or so. I really liked the really out there styles from back in the day. I understand why they're doing it. They're trying to do narratives now and bigger world building, and they did world building before, but they were a little bit more loose with the visual aspects of it. Excuse me, but yeah, now variety and visual. I think I think they understand that, and they're trying to lean back and go back a little bit to how it used to be these days, but there's something to variety and not being steeped in lore. So don't worry about that. Just work on your work and make your work as best as you can. Irina, yes. How to create Magic fan art. Does it have to be based on a real character? Just an epic scene portrait? Well, if you're creating fan art, then it should be art or characters or lore from the game. If you're trying to make art that would put you on the map as capable of Magic art, I don't think you need to do Magic specifically. Just take a look at the aspects that make Magic what it is. That specific kind of mage punk look, the how they portray characters, how they portray environments, understanding that you're designing compositions for a tiny not even 2-inch canvas. So composition, color, lighting, good effects, that's all going to come into play in order to get a job like that. And I can say for sure that Magic is definitely, they are hiring regularly. I see new names and new artwork on there all the time. Holy crap, there's so many great young artists popping up there. Just kicking ass. They're killing me. I'm too old for this shit. Oh my goodness. I think we will probably have to cut short today. Like I said at the beginning, I've got my art test I'm doing for this job. Fingers crossed that I pull this off, because a regular paycheck would be great now that I'm back on the land. Oh, in keeping with that, I'm applying at a lot of different places for art directorships and things like that. But should I get one, I plan on keeping the Twitch going. It may change time and date, which will be good for some and bad for others. There's not a lot I can do about that, unfortunately. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that if I do manage to pull off getting a gig, that things will be affected, but I still plan to keep our community going. So worry not. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys and talking. And I learned a lot too. Let's see. Yeah, I actually did not get much done today. I talked way more than I painted. Let's save it and let's do our trusty handy dandy group stuff. Yeah, if we're doing kind of the squint zoom out method that I've told you guys about, where if you've been noodling for a long time, yeah, I did not really improve a whole lot here. Just too much talking, it looks like. I definitely what I ended up doing with the breasts is awful. I'm gonna have to completely go back to the originals on that one. They're just all bubbly and roundy and weird now, so it is what it is. These things happen. Maybe we'll come back and fix this. Maybe it's time to go on to something else. I don't know. I'll think about it. We'll look at it next week and discuss. We'll see what you guys think. Yeah. So any last minute questions before I head out for the day? I hope I answered your questions sufficiently and have been uplifting. My goal is always to get you guys excited and working harder and all that stuff. I definitely don't want to knock you down at all. There was one question I missed. What was it? It was Irina's. Okay. Oh yeah, there was something I wanted to specify. So Irina, the $200 for inserts is what it was when I was working on it, and that was on the high end. So I'm assuming it's not going to be much more than that. And I do know that studios like Paizo, they just don't have the consumership to pay much more than that. So they may even be paying less. Watch out. There are a couple of studios that I have seen. They have ridiculous expectations for the quality of work, and they pay very little. So we can talk about that privately in the Discord if you guys have questions on that, and I can go into that a little bit deeper. At least just my personal experience with those things and friends' experiences. I'm not out to shit on companies or anything, but you guys are up and coming, and I want you to be careful and know that that's out there. You know, there are studios and there are offices that will have really high expectations and just really don't pay that great. But anyway, I wanted to get back to the Magic. So Magic is for what they make, I'd say they probably are not one of the highest paying companies, but what you are getting is, you know, that exposure. You are on a product, and there's the glory element. So that's something you got to manage with your expectations on pay. Is you always understand that you're going to be sacrificing something somewhere. You know, either it's going to be pay, or it's going to be recognition, or it could be stress. That's just work, especially working in a creative field. But you should always be your own advocate, your own best advocate. You should fight for yourself. You should absolutely make the decisions for your own mental and creative health that are going to ensure that you keep doing this and that you are still at least having some level of fun doing what you do. You'd paint for free for Wizards? Don't say that. No, Irina. Bad. Don't pay for free for Wizards. You should absolutely be paid. I think, yeah. Okay, good. Everybody's feeling good. Excellent. Well, yeah, I'm sorry to cut short and cut and run. Don't worry, we'll scrub that out. We'll scrub that out, Irina. You're safe. It's always fun hanging out with you guys. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you next week. We can chat in the Discord. I've noticed it's been a little bit quiet lately. Unacceptable. Get in there and let's talk about anything. So if you've got questions or if you've got special requests for paintings, things like that, that's the place to do it. Take care, y'all. Thanks for joining me. As always, paint smart, paint sexy.
Hi there. I'm Izzy, a professional writer, concept artist, and illustrator. I've taught painting for a dozen years or so, on and offline. Many of your favorite illustrators and designers have studied with me or under me and have gone on to teach in their own right. You're here because, like they did, You want to learn to paint realistically for illustration or concept art. Well, worry not. You're in the right place. Grab a seat. I want you to join me as I explain all the aspects of image making in extremely digestible and clear monthly lessons. Not through the lens of silly how to paint hair or eye demos. That shit is carnival tricks. And you're not really learning anything except an exact way to render one thing in one manner. This is painting mysticism at its worst. Watching these kinds of exploitative lessons won't help you level up with your understanding. Sure, now you can paint sparkly hair, but what if you want to paint a dragon, or figure out how to render a sea of fire, or depict a one-eyed transgender space marine dying in the vacuum of space? Painting and image making are tools of communication, and can be learned by anyone willing to put in some time. Like grammar is for language, light, color, and form literally follow a formula. Painting well is not a matter of chicken bones, zombie crackers, and the ever-dismissive concept of talent. Learning with my series, Izzy's Logic of Light and Color, will give you the tools and understanding so you can analyze light and form in reality and bring it to life in your work. Using this simple system I have distilled will help you harness your art to share your ideas as you've always intended. When we are children, we all draw in symbols. Symbols for our house, our hands, the sun, the grass, our pet lobster. As we grow into artists, we must learn to throw away symbols and begin to draw and paint what it is we actually see. And as we grow further, we learn to paint beyond what we see and what is actually there. Until finally we move beyond this and learn to trim away what is actually there so we voice only what we want. With me, you're going to have to buckle in and maybe take some pain meds, because I'm going to rip out your normal person's eyes and replace them with a painter's eyes. I'm going to restructure how you see and how you understand what you're seeing. I'm going to turn you into a painting machine. Truly, anyone can learn to paint realistically if they can both determine what they're seeing or imagining with basic and straightforward rules. Once you understand the mechanics of light, color, and form in reality, you will have the capacity to paint anything you can see or imagine realistically. After that, the real fun begins. Here are some of the ways you can join me and master the logic of light and color. The very first lesson of my series is totally free on my YouTube channel. In that lesson, I give you the 3 primary rules of light that are the very foundation of painting and understanding light itself. If you do nothing else to make your painting mastery easier, at least watch this amazing little lesson. It will do more for your basic understanding of light than just about any tutorial you can find. When you're ready to get deeper and you feel like you have those first rules figured out, allow me to utterly blow your mind with the next episodes available on Gumroad and ArtStation. As we go deeper into the rules underlying the logic of light and color, I carefully and simply explain important and interesting elements. From beginner to pro, there is an amazing amount of information available. Each concept has been distilled into the clearest explanation you're likely to find anywhere. Like episode 2, where we cover the atmospheric effect and how that relates to light, scale, and distance of objects in reality, and how to render it. Or episode 3, where I hand over the ultimate key to controlling value in your paintings. Episodes 5 through 8 are all about rendering materials. Want to understand the logic behind rendering metal, leather, hair, transparency, damn near anything. I even cover the logic behind painting special effects like fire, neon, or lightsabers in later episodes. The lessons just get deeper and more detailed as I build on the foundations covered in preceding episodes. The 10th gives you the most important rule of composition you'll ever learn to keep your images interesting. The next few episodes cover important painting techniques like my edge control ninjutsu or simplification with the large to small system. We dip a toe in color theory, devote a few episodes to finishing full-blown illustrations utilizing the techniques we've learned so far. Some episodes, like the lighting game or Advanced Exercises 1, the shirt, present cheap, valuable, and practical exercises to give you explosive growth in your development. Episodes 22 through 25 cover painting and illustration, just like I do for Magic the Gathering, From assignment and inception to signing the painting at the end, each one is full of tips, knowledge, everything to make working as an illustrator easier. Did you enjoy learning how to paint basic materials? Metal, wood, and such? I got 3 whole episodes devoted to the intricate logic behind painting different kinds of skin. After that, more lessons devoted to pumping life into your portraits and original methods for accurately drawing faces out of your head. From fundamentals to photo bashing, Gumroad and ArtStation have every lesson I create available for purchase a la carte. But here's an even better way to learn with me. Stay current with my latest lessons on Patreon for the lowest price available. Monthly support gets my student that month's lesson, a critique or paint over of their finished work, a discount code for 25% off the entire Gumroad archive, and access to the Logic of Light and Color Discord community, where we plan future lessons, share knowledge, and learn together as a team. The absolute best method is to join my Patreon classroom at the Student Plus tier, where you'll get everything I just mentioned and a free episode from the archive every month to accelerate your mastery at your own pace. You've decided to take control of your painting and master Izzy's Logic of Light and Color. Now it's up to you to choose the path that's best for you. I'll see you on the flip side. Paint smart, paint sexy.